Welcome back to Focus 54. And as promised in the first segment, I did say that we'll be joined by the Chief Director and Research and Specialist Service in the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development. And he is quite a fundi in his field, and he'll help us simplify and understand some of the terms that we loosely throw around as we're building up towards the SADC summit. And I am joined by Dr. Kutywayo. Welcome to Focus 54, Doctor.
Welcome, thank you.
Doctor, we have been talking about the SADC Seed Charter that the Ministry of Agriculture recently signed. Can you tell us a little bit more about what this charter entails in a nutshell and the impact that it has on the SADC community?
Okay. The Seed Charter is about a framework to operationalize the harmonized seed regulatory system, which Zimbabwe signed in 2021. So it's a framework to allow for the implementation of that system and also to allow the coordination within the SADC region.
Now, looking at the SADC region, it's laden with a lot of small farmers, subsistence farmers, and those that contribute in the large scale. How will the Seed Charter affect the small-scale farmers within the region?
I think in terms of small-scale farmer and even large-scale farmer, it is about access to quality seed. It ensures that in instances where we have droughts, like now the El Nino, and where we have floods, such that we don't have enough seed within our country, we can rely on another country to get the seed from there. And this seed will be governed through the Seed Charter to conform to the standards that we all agree, as a harmonized SADC region.
So as the SADC region, there'll be standardized measures that means that seed that goes to Malawi, Zambia, South Africa has certain standards that are required by the bloc. Now, what specific provisions are included in the Charter to protect and promote African indigenous plant variations and that sort of knowledge?
Yeah, I think the Seed Charter it's mainly administrative, right? And we also have the plant variety protocol that was signed as well together with the Seed Charter. That one allows us to protect our germplasm, the genetic materials that the breeders develop to have the crop varieties. So it means through this plant variety protection protocol, we are able to protect the rights of the breeders from the public sector or from the private sector. They are able to have access to control of their materials.
Are there certain examples that we have of, you must forgive me, Doc, I will speak on behalf of small-scale farmers. Right here in Zimbabwe, things such as sorghum, millet, those kind of varieties. Is that what we're talking about in terms of protecting our indigenous varieties?
If you talk about indigenous, I think the first is when you talk about varieties now, it's more to do with the commercial.
The
right?
commercial?
The commercial. If you talk about the likes of Seedco, the likes of other seeds, they have varieties that they've developed and that needs protection. So this protection is afforded. So in terms of the farmer varieties that you are talking about, there's provision to consider them, in the future. The framework for the farmer varieties, the indigenous land races, is still being developed.
Okay, so that also means the intellectual property and the research and the data that they have worked on. Now, speaking of that, each nation within the SADC region has, ministries such as yourselves, which also facilitate research within your localities and things like that. But does this charter, this regional agreement, facilitate the easy exchange of genetics? Let's say, for example, something is successful in Malawi, can that be easily facilitated to help Zambia and Zimbabwe?
Yes, it's already, there are already provisions within the harmonized seed regulatory system in terms of registration of the varieties on the SADC platform, right? So there is a harmonized platform which allows our breeders from Zimbabwe to register varieties in Zimbabwe. Once they've registered the varieties in Zimbabwe, they need to register in another country in the SADC region. For example, if they go to Mozambique and register a variety, then after that, those varieties can be sold within the whole SADC region.
Okay.
Yeah. So the seed charter is an instrument to ensure that this is run smoothly, so that a company X has got variety A of maize, which is working very well in Zimbabwe. They release it in Malawi or Zambia, then it's good to go in all the other countries.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So with the SADC summit, the heads of state meeting, and also various boards within, that also come with the heads of states coming through. How important is the SADC summit this year in terms of what you are doing to standardize, like you said, to have a standardized operating procedures in terms of seeds?
I think the summit is an opportunity for the heads of states and government to ratify formally what the Secretariat at SADC is doing in terms of facilitating the trade, the harmonization of seed in our case. Yeah. So it is important because it's a recognition that the regional body is coordinating and integrating trade. For us, it's the seed aspect that we are talking about. So it's important in that respect.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kutywayo. We're going to take a short break, and I did not know until the good doctor came into studio how important it is for us as a regional bloc to have such parameters, protocols, and to have our scientists, our developers, and our farmers working in synergy so that we can attain food security. Focus 54 takes a short break, but we'll be back right after this because we get into the industrial aspect of this seed charter. Into the second part of it. But how is it going so far? Ready? Okay. Welcome back to Focus 54 and the third and final segment, and we are graced by Dr. Dumisani Kutywayo, who is letting us know a little bit more and giving us in-depth knowledge about the seed charter that has been signed by SADC countries. Now, our local minister, Minister Masuku, upon signing the seed charter, mentioned that the charter is a key aspect of the SADC industrialization policy. Doctor, can you elaborate a little bit further on this? Talked about seed protection, harmonized trade. With the talk within the whole of Africa, beyond SADC, of African free trade areas, how important is this charter, and how can this then be duplicated to the rest of the 54 countries in Africa?
Yeah, I think if we have quality seed, it means that we have potential for higher yields, provided our management is high. So if we have high productivity as a result of the good quality seed, we have food security. And the excess that we have also feeds into industry as feedstock for the industry. And that allows us to then trade our commodities within the SADC region, the COMESA region, and throughout the whole continent in terms of the African free continental free trade area.
Now, looking at African food and African agriculture over the last 100 or so years, the SADC region has been a maverick in terms of certain breeds. When it comes to dogs, I don't know if you heard of something called the Rhodesian Ridgeback, the one with the ridge at the back. When it comes to beef, we also have the hard mashona, and you have the hard mashona, the goats, and also some certain seed varieties. Is there intellectual property and protection of these ideas, inventions, and research that we would have done in the SADC region so that those in other continents do not take our intellectual property and patent it across the world without our consent?
No, and I think there are provisions for protection of our, I'll talk in terms of crop varieties, for example. We, here in Zimbabwe, we've got the Plant Breeders' Rights Act, right?
Plant Breeders' Rights Act?
Yes. So that protects the breeders from the public sector, the private sector, so that their materials cannot be taken away by without any consent, right? So the SADC plant variety protocol, it's also a form of intellectual property right, just as the plant breeders' rights. You know, it recognizes that these varieties have been released by the breeder A or breeder C, and therefore it allows these breeders to have protection for a certain period before that material can become public material.
And your departments also have access to information for those that would like to find out further about these. That is my assumption?
Yes, we actually have a dedicated institute called the Seed Services Institute.
Okay.
Those ones administer the Seed Act as well as the Plant Breeders' Rights Act. So the registration of those varieties in Zimbabwe is done by the Seed Services Institute. And also, if you want to then register onto the SADC variety release platform, the Seed Services Institute facilitates that.
Dr. Kutywayo, we've got a lot of research institutions and innovation hubs within Zimbabwe, and I believe other countries within the SADC bloc have a lot of research institutions. What role are scientists playing in terms of implementing the various facets of the Seed Charter?
I think the scientists, they are involved in the breeding, right? So that's an investment in R&D, research and development. So they have to select the materials that has got potential in terms of drought tolerance, nitrogen, low nitrogen efficiency, water use efficiency, and higher yield, of course. So that is their role, because when you talk about seed now, it starts with the scientists selecting materials and releasing the material that has got high potential. And that's the seed that we talk about now.
Now, as SADC, we seem to be having our ducks in a row. But how will the SADC Seed Charter align with African Union initiatives, such as the Comprehensive African Agriculture Development Program, the CAADP? How does it align to that in terms of food security and regional trade?
I think this is all aligned in terms of from the sub-regions, from the SADC, right? In the COMESA, they are all aligned to the African Union. Yeah. So if it's the researchers, we've got the Forum of Agricultural Research in Africa, which is a AU institution. And we all align in terms of the strategies and implementation.
Now, we have spoken at, I think, at a very top level about, to some, the Seed Charter. But after the small farmers, the commercial farmers, the researchers, and those that are curious about the subject matter have gone through it, is there a follow-up and a support system in the form of capacity building programs that will help the charter be implemented to completion and also to measure its success?
Yes, I think there are provisions to do that, within the context of the SADC Food, Agriculture and Natural Resources Secretariat. So they are the ones who ensure that the regional meetings to develop the plans and also monitor the implementation of those plans are done. There are mechanisms to do that.
And Doctor, just to round off, what are the advantages and opportunities for young people who are keen to capitalize and grow their wealth within the SADC region, in regards to this charter? What advantages and opportunities are open for us?
And I think for young people, it's all about startup companies. You know, how do you then you can enter into contracts with the public sector research institutions or private sector research institutions for you to start multiplying seed of specific varieties that are deemed to be niche. You know, we talk about these functional foods, the traditional grains that you have talked about earlier on. Yeah, you can start multiplying the seed, enter into contracts and multiply the seed, make it available, because there are shortages of those traditional varieties. You take advantage and multiply that. Talk about African pea or cowpea if you want. You know, you can multiply those varieties and make sure that seed is available. Biofortified seed varieties,
Yes.
such as the orange-fleshed maize, the beans, high zinc, high iron and high zinc beans. Those are niche markets for potential.
For young people to
For young
get
people,
out
yeah.
and get them. Thank you so much. I know you've got a lot of work with the SADC Summit nearing, and I know you'll have a lot of meetings. But the Chief Director, Research and Specialist Services at the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development, Dr. Dumisani Kutywayo, thank you so much for joining us on Focus 54. And I think the good doctor has helped us close off this program with the opportunity to say, why don't you get those traditional grains? Why don't you start dealing with beans? Multiply the seed. It's a niche market that probably could make you the next millionaire. My name is Jeffrey Murimbechi. For Focus 54, it's a wrap for now. Hello and welcome to Focus 54, your real guide to African news. My name is Jeffrey Murimbechi. And as you know, we are building up, and we have been building up towards something that is going to affect the rest of Africa, but a strong focus on SADC. And this, Zimbabwe will be hosting the SADC Head of States Summit in August. Later on, I will be joined by the Chief Director, Research and Specialist Services in the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development. And we'll be talking about seeds. Yes, something that is very specific, but one of the building blocks, in fact, the most paramount building blocks in the world of agriculture. Now, he'll help us unpack the SADC Seed Charter, which the government of Zimbabwe has recently signed, and we'll be hearing its implementations in Africa. Where you stand as young people, are you protected as a researcher, and how you can be a part of this? Sometimes we let this information slide and not really understand the implementations of this. We'll be talking about intellectual property, we'll be talking about free trade agreements and what it means within the bloc in hindsight of the El Nino-induced drought, which has threatened food security in most parts of the SADC region. And the doctor that will be joining us will be helping us understand that. But we start off and kick off this segment, this show, with the news within the region, as Zimbabwe and Zambia's relations in trade on the upward trajectory, with the proposed Zimbabwe-Zambia Common Agro-Industrial Park project set to see at least two cereals and value addition plants being set up. And as you know by now, that Zimbabwe has shared very cordial relationships with Zambia, especially in the worlds of fisheries. And someone within the fisheries industry was telling me that quite a lot of the fish that is produced in Zimbabwe is consumed in Zambia by culture and by choice. So we'll be seeing a lot more of those positive stories coming through within the agro sector. We move on to South Africa as the country faces several residents of KwaZulu-Natal have been left homeless after wildfires blazed through their homes. And we have been talking about issues of climate change and how things have been affected. Already in Zimbabwe, the winter looks like it's already over while we're in the middle of July, and we are seeing heat waves and conditions that are sparking felt fires and wildfires within the KZN region. And this will be one of the most difficult things for the country, just coming from an election that has a new government with a larger parliament. And we will see if the new leaders that have been appointed and elected by its people will be able to swiftly help the people of KwaZulu-Natal. We move to Morocco now, where Morocco is expected to double tomato exports by the end of this season as the country seeks to boost foreign revenue as well as access new international markets. Closer look at that, and you wonder, how do they have the research and the technology to double their tomato research? Well, the people that specialize in that sort of research and that sector of the economy will be joining us later on within the show. We move to East Africa, where Uganda has witnessed a surge of vanilla exports as the country remains competent as the exports stage in Africa. Uganda remains the top 10 vanilla exporting countries, one of the top 10 vanilla exporting countries within the globe. And this flavorant within your baking and in your desserts goes beyond the use of just human consumption, but is also used in textile industries and various industrial applications. And Uganda is certainly growing and booming within that sector. Still within East Africa, Tanzania has continued to face domestic beef shortage as exports rises in 2023 to 2024. Now, short supply of beef on the local market has led to a high demand of high prices, weighing in on customers and adversely also affecting the consumption of beef within Tanzania. That's all we have for you in terms of a look of news and the stories that are topping within the continent. And we'll be now focusing on the SADC summit, and we'll be with some experts. In fact, one expert will be joining us right after this to unpack the SADC the seeds in SADC and the seed charter that was signed by Zimbabwe. What does this mean for you? What does it mean for me? And the trajectory, is it even aligned with the African Union and some of the programs that are concurrent? Stay tuned for more. This is Focus 54.